Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as the alarm bells echoed through the mining station's corridors. Another shipment had arrived at Kepler Station, and with it, more work for the skeleton crew of human mechanics keeping this remote outpost running. The Galactic Trade Federation didn't care much about the comfort of the workers on the edge of known space, as long as the rare minerals kept flowing. The docking bay doors hissed open, revealing a massive Vorthon cargo vessel. The Vorthons were one of the more powerful species in the galaxy, known for their strict hierarchy and profitable slave trade. Marcus had learned to keep his head down when they visited. Humans were still considered a minor species, barely worth notice except for their surprising mechanical aptitude. As the Vorthan crew began unloading their cargo, Marcus noticed something unusual. Among the standard shipping containers was a specialized holding cell, its energy barriers crackling with blue light. Inside, a creature paced back and forth with predatory grace. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in midnight black fur marked with silver stripes. Its muscular frame spoke of incredible strength, while its golden eyes burned with intelligence and barely contained rage. Marcus had never seen anything like it before. The creature's movements were fluid and purposeful, like a big cat from Earth's ancient history. But there was something more, an almost regal bearing that suggested this was no mere animal. "What's that one?" Marcus asked Jake, his fellow mechanic, nodding toward the containment cell. Jake glanced over nervously. "Kitharin, I think. They're supposed to be some kind of warrior species from the Outer Rim. That one's probably headed for the gladiator pits on Nexus Prime." Marcus watched as the Vorthan guards activated shock prods whenever the Kitharin moved too close to the barrier. Each electric jolt made the creature snarl, revealing fangs that could easily tear through steel. But what struck Marcus most was the look in those golden eyes, not just anger but profound sadness. This being understood exactly what was happening to it. The Vorthan captain, a hulking reptilian creature with scales like armor plating, approached the workstation where Marcus was running diagnostics on their ship's hyperdrive. "Human," the captain growled in accented basic. "Your repairs better be swift. We have a delivery schedule to maintain." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Should have you back in hyperspace within 6 hours." As he worked, Marcus couldn't stop glancing at the holding cell. The Kitharin had stopped pacing and now sat in meditation pose, its eyes closed. Despite the terrible circumstances, there was something almost noble about the creature's bearing. It reminded Marcus of the stories his grandfather used to tell about prisoners of war who maintained their dignity even in the darkest moments. During his break, Marcus approached the holding cell cautiously. The Vorthan guards were busy loading their ship and paying little attention to a lowly human mechanic. Up close, he could see old scars crisscrossing the Kitharin's fur, evidence of many battles. This was clearly a seasoned warrior, not some random capture. The Kitharin's eyes opened suddenly, fixing on Marcus with startling intensity. For a moment, neither moved. Then the creature spoke, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's chest. "You watch me with different eyes than the others, small one." Marcus nearly jumped out of his skin. He hadn't expected the creature to speak basic, let alone address him directly. Sorry. I didn't mean to stare." "Yet you do not look upon me as the reptiles do. They see only a beast to be sold. What do you see?" The question caught Marcus off guard. What did he see? "Someone who doesn't deserve to be in a cage," he said finally. The Kitharin's expression shifted slightly. Was that surprise? "Your species puzzles me. The Vorthans speak of humans as weak, yet you show no fear. Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Fear doesn't help anyone, and you haven't given me any reason to be afraid." "I am Kael'thara of the Ninth Pride," the creature said formally. "I was a war guardian until the Vorthans destroyed my homeworld. Now I am merely cargo." The pain in those words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He looked around quickly to make sure the guards weren't watching. "I'm Marcus. I fix things." "Can you fix a broken world, Marcus, who fixes things?" Before Marcus could answer, a Vorthon guard approached. "Human, back to work. No fraternizing with the merchandise." Marcus nodded quickly and returned to his duties, but Kael'thara's words haunted him. A war guardian. That explained the scars and the bearing. This wasn't just any warrior. He was dealing with someone who had been responsible for protecting an entire world. As the hours passed, Marcus learned more about the Vorthan's operation. This wasn't their first stop, and it wouldn't be their last. They had an entire network for capturing and selling sentient beings, and the galactic authorities turned a blind eye as long as the bribes kept flowing. The repair work was routine, but Marcus found himself working slower than usual. He kept thinking about Kael'thara sitting in that cage, waiting to be delivered to whatever fresh hell awaited him. The gladiator pits were a death sentence. Even a skilled warrior would eventually fall to the endless stream of opponents and the crowd's demand for blood. When the Vorthan captain came to check on progress, Marcus was ready. "There's a problem with your hyperdrive motivator," he lied smoothly. "It's been running hot. Could fail catastrophically in hyperspace if we don't replace it." The captain's scales rippled with anger. "How long will that take?" "At least 12 hours, maybe more. I'll have to fabricate a new one from scratch." "Unacceptable. We have a schedule." Marcus stood his ground. "You want to risk a hyperdrive explosion? Be my guest, but I won't sign off on a ship that might kill everyone aboard." The captain glared at him but eventually backed down. Even Vorthons weren't stupid enough to risk hyperspace travel with a damaged motivator. 12 hours, human, not 1 minute longer." As the Vorthons settled in to wait, Marcus began planning. He had 12 hours to figure out how to help Kael'thara escape. The problem was that freeing a prisoner from a Vorthan slave ship wasn't just theft. It was an act of war against one of the galaxy's major powers. If he was caught, it wouldn't just mean his death. The entire human colony on Kepler Station would face retaliation. But as he looked at the holding cell and saw Kael'thara's quiet dignity in the face of despair, Marcus knew he couldn't walk away. Some things were worth the risk. The question was how to do it without getting everyone killed in the process. Marcus spent the next 8 hours studying the station's schematics while pretending to fabricate hyperdrive parts. Kepler Station was old, built during the first wave of human expansion into this sector. Its design was simple but functional, with multiple maintenance tunnels and emergency systems that the newer alien ships couldn't easily track. The plan that formed in his mind was insane, but it might actually work. The key was timing and misdirection. If he could create enough chaos, he might be able to get Kael'thara off the station and onto one of the emergency shuttles before the Vorthans knew what was happening. As the station's night cycle began, Marcus made his move. He accessed the environmental controls from a maintenance terminal, careful to mask his digital footprints. The Vorthons had posted guards around their ship, but they were overconfident. After all, who would be foolish enough to steal from them? First, Marcus triggered a cascade failure in the mining section's atmosphere processors. Nothing dangerous, but enough to set off alarms and draw station security away from the docking bays. Then he activated the fire suppression system in Cargo Bay 7, filling that section with harmless but vision-blocking foam. While chaos erupted throughout the station, Marcus slipped through the maintenance tunnels to reach the Vorthon ship's external systems. Years of working on alien technology had taught him that most species built their ships with predictable vulnerabilities. The Vorthons were no exception. Their holding cell system was powered by a secondary generator, isolated from the main ship systems for security. But isolation worked both ways. Marcus connected his portable diagnostic unit to the external power coupling and began uploading a virus he'd cobbled together from spare code modules. The beauty of the virus was its simplicity. It wouldn't damage anything permanently, but it would create feedback loops in the power systems, causing them to cycle on and off unpredictably. To the ship's automated systems, it would look like random equipment failures. Marcus made his way back through the tunnels as emergency crews rushed to deal with the various malfunctions throughout the station. He emerged in the docking bay just as his virus triggered its first cascade. The lights flickered, and several of the Vorthon ship's systems began cycling through emergency modes. The guards were immediately on alert, but they were looking for external threats, not system failures. Marcus approached the holding cell casually, carrying his diagnostic kit as if responding to another maintenance request. "Kael'thara," he whispered urgently, "the power's about to fail. When it does, you'll have maybe 30 seconds before backup systems kick in." The Kitharan's golden eyes snapped open, instantly alert. "You would risk this for me?" "Just be ready," Marcus said. "There's an emergency shuttle in Bay 12. Can you get there?" "If you free me from this cage, small one, I can get anywhere." Marcus nodded and moved to a nearby service panel. The virus was doing its work. Power fluctuations were cascading through the ship's systems in a seemingly random pattern. He waited for the right moment, then triggered the next phase. The holding cell's energy barriers flickered and died. Kael'thara was on his feet instantly, moving with fluid grace despite having been confined for days. But instead of running immediately, he paused. "What about you?" he asked. "I'll be fine," Marcus lied. "Go." What happened next would be burned into Marcus's memory forever. Kael'thara moved like liquid death, flowing through the docking bay with impossible speed and silence. The first Vorthan guard went down before he even knew the prisoner was free. The second managed to raise his weapon but was disarmed with surgical precision. Marcus had expected violence, but this was something else entirely. Kael'thara wasn't just fighting, he was performing a deadly art form. Every movement was calculated, efficient, beautiful in its terrible effectiveness. This was what a true war guardian looked like in combat. The Vorthan captain emerged from his ship just as Kael'thara dispatched the last guard. For a moment, the two faced each other across the bay, the enslaver and the escaped prisoner. The captain reached for his sidearm. But Kael'thara was already moving. Marcus expected the captain to die quickly, like the guards. Instead, Kael'thara stopped just short of a killing blow. His claws were at the captain's throat, but he didn't strike. "Your life is forfeit by the laws of my people," Kael'thara growled. "But I am no longer in my homeland. Today, exile is punishment enough." The captain collapsed as Kael'thara released him, gasping and shaking. The war guardian turned to Marcus, and for a terrifying moment the human wondered if he'd just helped unleash something he couldn't control. But then Kael'thara's expression softened. "You have given me back my freedom, Marcus, who fixes things. That debt cannot be repaid easily." "Just get out of here," Marcus urged. "The whole station will be crawling with security soon." Instead of leaving immediately, Kael'thara moved to the Vorthon ship's computer systems. His massive hands moved across the controls with surprising delicacy. These files contain information about other prisoners, other ships. This knowledge could save hundreds of lives. Marcus watched in amazement as Kael'thara downloaded everything: slave routes, buyer contacts, prison locations. The war guardian wasn't just escaping, he was gathering intelligence for what looked like a larger campaign. The sound of approaching security forces echoed through the corridors. Kael'thara finished his download and headed for the exit, then stopped. "My people have a saying," he said to Marcus. "The measure of a warrior is not in the enemies he defeats, but in the allies he protects. You have proven yourself a warrior today, small one." "I'm just a mechanic," Marcus protested. "No." Kael'thara's golden eyes blazed with something that might have been hope. "You are something far more dangerous. You are a human who acts on his conscience." With that, the War Guardian melted into the shadows of the maintenance corridors. Marcus never saw him leave, but somehow he knew that Kale Thara had made it to the emergency shuttle bay. The security teams arrived minutes later to find unconscious Vorthon guards and a very confused captain who couldn't explain how his prisoner had simply vanished. Marcus played his part perfectly, acting as shocked as everyone else when they discovered the escape. The investigation lasted for hours, but no one suspected the quiet human mechanic. After all, what could one maintenance worker do against trained Vorthon guards? As the Vorthon ship finally departed the next day, its captain shooting murderous glances at anyone who came near, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. He'd done something good today, something that mattered. He had no way of knowing that his act of simple decency had just changed the course of galactic history, or that Kale Thara, now free among the stars, was already planning something that would make the Vorthons rue the day they'd ever heard of humans. The War Guardian had found something he thought lost forever: hope. And he intended to share that gift with every enslaved being in the galaxy. 6 months after the escape at Kepler Station, Marcus Chen had almost convinced himself it was over. The Vorthans had conducted their investigation, found nothing, and moved on to other concerns. The galaxy was vast, and one escaped prisoner was hardly worth a prolonged hunt. Marcus was wrong. The first sign of trouble came during the morning shift change. The station's long-range sensors picked up an incoming ship that didn't match any known configuration. It was massive, nearly the size of a heavy cruiser, but built with organic curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Most disturbing was its complete silence on all communication frequencies. Station Administrator Collins called an emergency meeting in the operations center. His face was pale with worry as he addressed the skeleton crew. "We've got an unidentified vessel approaching," he announced. "They're not responding to hails, and their ship design doesn't match anything in our databases. I want all civilian personnel to the emergency shelters until we figure out what we're dealing with." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Deep in his gut, he suspected this had something to do with Kale Thara's escape. But there was no way to voice that suspicion without admitting his role in the jailbreak. The unknown ship docked with surprising gentleness for something so large. When the airlock cycled open, Marcus's fears were confirmed. 3 figures emerged, moving with the same predatory grace he remembered from Kale Thara. These were definitely Kitharans, but something was different about them. They wore armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid shadow, and their eyes held an intensity that made even the station's security guards step back involuntarily. But it was the leader who truly caught Marcus's attention. This Kitharan was older than the others, his midnight fur streaked with silver. Scars covered his visible skin like a road map of battles fought across decades. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Vex Halar, Hunt Commander of the Third Claw. I seek the human called Marcus Chen." Administrator Collins stepped forward nervously. "I'm in charge here. If you have business with one of my people, you go through me." Vex Halar's golden eyes fixed on the administrator with frightening intensity. "This is not a negotiation, small mammal. I will speak with Marcus Chen, now." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Marcus realized he had 2 choices: come forward voluntarily, or watch these aliens tear the station apart looking for him. He stepped out from behind the other maintenance workers. "I'm Marcus Chen." Vex Halar studied him for a long moment, as if evaluating some invisible quality. "You are smaller than I expected," he said finally. "But then, the greatest storms often begin with the gentlest breeze." "If this is about what happened 6 months ago," Marcus began, but the Hunt Commander raised a hand for silence. "What happened 6 months ago changed everything," Vex Halar said. When Thara returned to our hidden settlements, he brought more than just intelligence about Vorthon's slave routes. He brought hope. For the first time in generations, one of our people had encountered an alien who acted without thought of profit or advancement. Marcus glanced around at his colleagues, all of whom were staring at him with varying degrees of shock and confusion. "I just did what anyone would do." "No." Vex Haller's voice carried a note of sadness. "What you did is what we once thought only Kitharans would do. You risked everything to help someone you didn't know, someone whose freedom offered you no benefit. In doing so, you proved that honor is not dead in this galaxy." One of the other Kitharans stepped forward and handed Marcus a small device that looked like crystallized starlight. "Thara sends his greetings, along with this communication node. He has much to tell you." Marcus activated the device, and suddenly Thara's voice filled the room, but the broken, caged being Marcus remembered was gone. This voice rang with purpose and determination. "Marcus, my friend," the message began, "your gift of freedom has grown into something neither of us could have imagined. The information I gathered from that Vorthon ship led us to 12 slave markets and 37 prison stations. In 6 months, we have liberated over 3,000 beings of 40 different species." Gasps echoed through the operations center. 3,000 prisoners freed? That was practically a small war. "But liberation is only the beginning," Thara's voice continued. "Those we have freed come from every corner of the galaxy. Warriors, scientists, artists, philosophers, all stolen from their homes and families. They have joined our cause willingly, not as followers, but as equals in a new alliance. We call ourselves the Free Chain." Vex Haller took over the explanation. "The free chain is not just about breaking physical shackles. We seek to break the chains of indifference that allow slavery to flourish. The chains of prejudice that divide species against each other. The chains of despair that make beings accept injustice as inevitable." Marcus felt overwhelmed. "I just freed one person. I never meant to start some kind of revolution." "The greatest changes often begin with the smallest actions," Vex Haller replied. "But intention matters less than consequence. Your actions have consequences that reach far beyond this station." The hunt commander gestured to his companions, who began unpacking equipment from their ship. "We are not here to recruit you, Marcus Chen, though you would be welcome among us. We are here because the Vorthon High Command has declared the Free Chain a terrorist organization. They have placed a bounty on Thara's head large enough to buy a small planet." Marcus's blood ran cold. "They're coming here." "A Vorthon battle fleet will arrive within the day," Vex Haller confirmed. "They believe that destroying this station and everyone on it will send a message to others who might consider helping escaped slaves. They are incorrect in this assumption." Administrator Collins found his voice at last. "You're saying they're going to attack Kepler Station? We're a civilian facility. We have mining families here, children." "The Vorthons care nothing for your civilian status," Vex Haller said grimly. "But we do. The Free Chain does not abandon those who have shown honor." What happened next would be remembered in every human settlement for generations to come. The Kitharans began deploying defensive systems that seemed to bend physics itself. Energy shields that turned projectiles into harmless light. Weapon emplacements that fired coherent gravity waves, sensor networks that could track a single ship across multiple star systems. Marcus watched in amazement as decades of hidden Kitharan technology transformed his humble mining station into a fortress. How is this possible? "When the Vorthons destroyed our homeworld," Vex Haller explained as he worked, "they believed they had eliminated the Kitharan race. They were wrong. Scattered communities survived in hidden places throughout the galaxy. We have spent generations preparing for the day we could strike back. Your actions simply provided the spark we needed to begin. The Vorthon fleet arrived exactly when predicted. a massive formation of heavy cruisers and assault ships that could have conquered most star systems. Their commander opened communication channels with typical Vorthon arrogance. "Attention, Kepler Station!" the reptilian voice hissed across all frequencies. "You harbor criminals and terrorists. Surrender the human Marcus Chen and all information about escaped slaves or face total annihilation." Marcus stepped forward to respond, but Vex Haller stopped him with a gentle but firm hand. "This is not your burden to bear alone anymore," the Hunt commander said. Then he opened a channel back to the fleet. "This is Vex Haller of the Free Chain," he announced. "Kepler Station is under our protection. Any attack upon it will be considered an act of war against all free beings in this galaxy." The Vorthon commander's laughter was like grinding metal. "You think your pathetic resistance can stand against the might of the Trade Federation? We will crush you like insects." "Perhaps," Vex Haller replied calmly. "But insects can be very persistent, and we have learned much about persistence from our human friends." The battle that followed lasted 3 hours and changed everything. The Catharans didn't just defend the station, they systematically dismantled the Vorthon fleet using technologies that seemed like magic. Ships were disabled rather than destroyed, crews captured rather than killed. By the end, 17 Vorthon vessels floated powerless in space while their former captives began the long process of liberation. But the real victory was not military. As news of the battle spread across the galactic communication networks, something unprecedented began to happen. Beings of dozens of species started sending messages of support. Merchant captains reported engine malfunctions when ordered to transport slaves. Dock workers on trade stations began suffering from mysterious illnesses whenever slave ships needed loading. Government officials who had ignored the slave trade for decades suddenly found themselves facing uncomfortable questions from their constituents. Marcus stood in the station's observation deck, watching as freed prisoners were transferred from the disabled Vorthon ships. Among them, he could see beings he didn't recognize. Species from the far rim of the galaxy who had been captured during exploration missions. All would be going home now, carrying with them the story of a simple human mechanic who had chosen to act when action was needed. Kael'thera arrived on the last transport, no longer the broken prisoner Marcus had first met. The War Guardian moved with renewed purpose, but when he approached Marcus, his manner was surprisingly humble. "My friend," Kael'thera said, "you gave me more than freedom. You reminded me that honor exists in the most unexpected places. The free chain owes its existence to your courage." "I'm still just a mechanic," Marcus protested. Kael'thera's golden eyes blazed with warmth. "Yes, you are a mechanic. You fix things that are broken. Today, you helped us begin fixing a broken galaxy." As the Free Chain fleet prepared to depart, carrying their message of hope to the far corners of known space, Marcus reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. 6 months ago, he had been nobody special, just another human trying to make an honest living on the edge of civilization. Now he was part of something larger than himself, something that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The Vorthon Trade Federation's stranglehold on interstellar commerce was already beginning to weaken as their slave-based economy faced organized resistance for the first time. But more importantly, beings throughout the galaxy had been reminded that they had choices. They could stand by and watch injustice flourish, or they could act to stop it. The measure of their character would be determined by which choice they made. Marcus Chen, the mechanic who had fixed one broken life, had helped break the chains that bound millions. And in doing so, he had proven that sometimes the most ordinary people could accomplish the most extraordinary things. The galaxy would never be the same.